1, correlation doesn't prove causation. 2, how do you know it's not something else? 3, what about the reversal of cause and effect?
Hello and welcome to episode 481 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Ben Olson. With me is Nathan Fox. We're the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. Be LSAT famous, share news, and ask questions on our website, thinkinglsat.com. Coming up on Tuesday, December 3rd, we're going to do another free class. That's Parents Night Volume 2. So if you have parents and those parents are trying to get you to apply to law school when you're not ready, when they're saying, hey, just take the LSAT and put in those applications, and you're saying, wait a sec, I might not have my best score on record, or I might be applying late in the cycle. This is the class for them, because we will explain exactly how the law school admissions game is played and why they're pushing you into a position that is just not as desirable as it could be if you waited and got your best LSAT score and applied early in the cycle. We'll show them the dollars. A lot of times when people see the amount of money that's on the line by waiting and doing this game correctly, they start to change their tune.
Hope to see you there. Just go to lsatdemon.com/free if you want to sign up, you and or your parents, for that free class. Want to do an LR question?
Let's do it.
This is from Prep Test 141, Section 2, Question 9. We should be able to link to this question in the show notes. You'll need just a Demon free account to check it out. Columnist says, research shows significant reductions in the number of people smoking, and especially in the number of first-time smokers in those countries that have imposed stringent restrictions on tobacco advertising.
Okay, so now I've been given a correlation here. We know the number of first-time smokers in countries that have imposed bans on tobacco, or at least restrictions on tobacco advertising, has gone down. That's great news. There, of course, a lot of people would read that and think, oh, okay, well, the restrictions on tobacco advertising is maybe causing first-time smokers not to take up smoking, or potential first-time smokers. But that's just a correlation. There could be something else going on here that could explain both of these things.
Ben seeing down the road here, he's not just looking at the white line right in front of him as he's driving. He's imagining where the road is going to go so that he's not surprised when the bend comes. And he's thinking, well, I've done a million LSAT questions, and I know that when they present a correlation, they very frequently then falsely conclude causation.
Mm-hmm.
So he's guarding himself against that by just kind of, all right, I'll give you the correlation, but not so fast. Any thoughts about numbers versus percentages at this point?
Not really. Do you have thoughts on numbers versus percentages? I mean, we're talking about total number, the significant reductions in the number of people smoking. Okay, so it's gone down. Yeah.
But it's not the percentage of people smoking.
Unless there's a dramatically more people also uptaking smoking. But I'm just expecting the raw numbers are going down, so the percentage is going down as well.
But what if just the population went down?
The population in general? I mean, certainly possible.
Yeah. Just sort of like, again, just kind of like playing around with the, we're going to give them credit for the facts they've presented and not really give them credit for anything more than that. So when they say the number of people smoking has gone down, well, if there was war and there's now 50% as many people in the country, the percentage of people smoking could have gone up and the number of smokers would nonetheless have gone down.
You're absolutely right that I am kind of bringing into this argument the general assumption that population numbers are increasing slightly over time.
And that's not an unreasonable assumption to make, but you're just, I guess all I'm inviting readers to do is to be very skeptical or be very serious about the evidence that's actually there and the evidence that's not really there.
Yeah, and the assumptions that you're bringing to the table, it's fine to bring them.
Right.
Just be prepared to dispel with them as soon
Right.
as something suggests that might be wrong.
Right. This provides substantial grounds for disputing tobacco companies' claims that advertising has no significant causal impact on the tendency to smoke.
Hmm. Okay, I don't totally hate this last sentence because it's not saying the only word I really hate about it is the word substantial. This provides substantial grounds for disputing their claims. No, it provides some grounds. It's some evidence that there might be a causal connection between restricting advertising and first time smokers, or I guess you could look at the reverse of that, that advertising causes people to smoke. But to say that it's substantial is to overstate a correlation.
Mm-hmm. Correlation does not prove causation. Correlation can point meaningfully in the direction of causation, right? It can give you a reason to suspect.
Yeah,
So it is, if that said some grounds for disputing,
I would have no problem.
yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, it's some grounds. It doesn't disprove anything or prove
Hmm.
anything, but it's some grounds for disputing it.
But when they say substantial grounds, you say,
No, not quite.
not so fast, right? Like, well, we're going to have to talk about how substantial those grounds really are.
Mm-hmm.
If Ben were trying to attack the tobacco companies, he would absolutely be saying, hey, look, we've got this correlation and we think that this correlation indicates causation.
Mm-hmm.
But if Ben is defending the tobacco companies, he's going to say, hold on a second, correlation does not prove causation. And he's got a lot of different ways to sidestep that, oh, even though there's a correlation, for example, what if the population just went down? If the population goes down, then yeah, there's going to be a decrease in the number of people smoking and a decrease in the number of people smoking in the countries that have imposed stringent restrictions on tobacco advertising. Yeah, the population went down. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
If this is an effect of the war that happened, or an effect of people don't have kids anymore, or an effect of whatever else, it doesn't have to be correlation, therefore causation, depending on what team you're on. And Ben, are you on this columnist's team as you're reading this argument?
No, my job is to go against the columnist, even though that means mildly getting in bed with the tobacco companies here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, we have to be morally ambiguous as we attack these arguments, right? Our job is to, like, even if you, like, look, your grandpa could have died of lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa did, in fact, die of lung cancer, and he was a smoker.
Mm.
So, like,
No, that is
am I
just a
sympathetic?
correlation.
Am I sympathetic toward the tobacco companies? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to be any kind of a good lawyer, or at the very least, if I'm going to be any kind of a good LSAT student, I have to look at this argument and I have to go, well, all you've really got there is correlation, and correlation doesn't really prove causation. And so I can tell you what they're going to say.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't think that through to think about what they would say, then what kind of an advocate are you in your fight against the tobacco companies? Okay. Here comes the question now. Which one of the following, if true, most undermines the columnist's reasoning? What are you thinking at this point?
Yeah. So right now, the biggest weakness in this argument is going from correlation to causation. It's assuming that there is a causal connection between advertising and smoking. I just need an answer choice that says, actually, those two things are caused by something else, or it's a little strange, but it's possible that the decrease in smoking has enabled the restrictions to come into being. I mean, all I'm
Mm,
doing here is I'm thinking about
that's
either
not that far
something
fetched.
else is causing both, or the causal relationship that this columnist is assuming is actually reversed.
Yep. I think of it in 3 steps. One, you start yelling, correlation doesn't prove causation.
Mm-hmm.
right? Just point out the logical error.
Mm-hmm.
Correlation can't prove causation.
Yep.
2, how do you know it's not something else? How do you know it's not just people are having fewer kids these days, so populations are shrinking, so there's fewer smokers everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
3, what about the reversal of cause and effect? And Ben was like, he was kind of like cringing as he was saying it because he wasn't sure how realistic it was. But, what if there's just an overall decline in like smoking's not cool anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so smoking's not cool anymore. So people stop smoking. And in the places where smoking is really not cool anymore, it's more likely that they can pass anti smoking advertising legislation.
Yeah. I mean, I still see that as partly like a third factor, like the coolness
Sure,
factor.
the coolness factor. Yeah, okay. Or I guess I could just more straightforwardly say in places where people have decided to stop smoking,
Mm-hmm.
like non smokers don't want to see tobacco advertisements.
Mm-hmm. So
So,
they're
no,
now requesting these restrictions. Yeah.
the legislation is because the people don't smoke. It's not that the legislation is keeping them from smoking, it's that they have already decided not to smoke for whatever reason. We don't know. I have no idea what the reason is. Smoking's as cool as it ever was, but people just don't want to smoke. I don't know. They just don't smoke. And then when you don't smoke, then you're like, yeah, fuck it. I don't want to see those advertisements. So you end up enacting legislation that bans the advertisements. Again, correlation doesn't prove causation. What about some other factor that might be causing both of these things? Third, what about the reversal of cause and effect?
Yep.
At a minimum, think through those things anytime you see correlation, therefore causation.
Yep.
Okay, time to read the answer choices.
Let's do it. Yeah.
A, people who smoke are unlikely to quit merely because they are no longer exposed to tobacco advertising.
We're talking about first time smokers. Um, so this is strange. We're talking, A is talking about people who already smoke, and it's saying that they aren't likely to quit, but I'm more interested in people who aren't likely to start.
Yeah, the really salient fact that they had was first time smokers are down
Mm-hmm.
big in countries that have imposed these stringent restrictions on tobacco advertising. And A's, yeah, it's like, well, look, it's hard to quit smoking. Who cares? That's not what we're talking about. Why are there fewer people on the smoking uptake?
Yeah.
And so A is just not really very not doing much. B, broadcast media tend to have stricter restrictions on tobacco advertising than do print media.
This is a super common wrong answer. It's making a distinction between two things that are subsets of the broader issue. The broader issue is restrictions on advertising. I'm just going back to make sure, but it says restrictions on tobacco advertising. It doesn't distinguish between print or broadcast media. So it's like a non-issue. We're just talking about restrictions in general, and they write an answer choice that tries to talk about some fight within that general restriction. It's a super common wrong answer because it's a distraction.
Yeah, if you think through like what B's actually saying, it's like, well, it's harder to get Joe Camel onto Saturday morning cartoons than it is to get Joe Camel into a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that have to do with whether the restrictions are causing people not to smoke?
Yeah. How much advertising are we seeing in either of those venues under the restrictions?
Is not connected enough to the facts or the argument that was made. C, restrictions on tobacco advertising are imposed only in countries where a negative attitude toward tobacco use is already widespread and increasing.
Mm, okay, so this is kind of like the uncool thing we were talking about. It's basically saying it's this answer choice C is a correlation. It's not making any causal claims here, but what it's doing is it's introducing a third element to the correlation that we already have. We know that first time smokers are down in countries that have restrictions on tobacco advertising. So those two things are correlated. Oh, and there's a third thing that's correlated with that, and that is this negative attitude that's widespread and increasing. Okay. So if all those three things are correlated together, what's the causal relationship between the three of them? We don't know. One possibility that C raises is that the negative attitudes towards smoking could be causing the other two things that are correlated.
So you're liking that answer?
I like that answer because it's saying maybe there isn't a causal connection between restrictions on advertising and the decrease in first time smokers.
If you were working for the RJ Reynolds Corporation, making millions of dollars a year to defend them, you would love to be able to bring C into this matter,
Yeah.
right? D, most people who begin smoking during adolescence continue to smoke throughout their lives.
Okay. Those are the ones who started, but I'm talking about first time smokers are down. They don't even start.
So it's kind of wrong for the same reason that A was wrong. It's about people quitting smoking or continuing smoking. It's just not about whether advertising has anything to do with first time smoking. E, people who are largely unaffected by tobacco advertising tend to be unaffected by other kinds of advertising as well.
Oh, that's so nice to know. But how many people are largely unaffected by tobacco advertising? We have no clue. It doesn't say. It just says the people who are have some characteristic, but that could be a small number of people. It could be a large number of people. I have no clue.
Yeah. You can like role play it from either side, right? You can role play from the side of I'm defending the tobacco companies. You can see how you want to put C into the record because C is a serious monkey wrench for this columnist's reasoning. You can role play it from the other side, thinking about what you're going to say back if you're the columnist. And if you tried to say A or B or D or E to this columnist, the columnist is going to be like, how's that relevant? Why does that matter to the argument that I'm making? I've presented this correlation. I'm claiming that that's evidence of causation. These other answers, like, what are you talking about? You're mentioning smoking, you're mentioning advertising, but you're not doing it in a relevant way. But what does the columnist say back to C? C's like, hey, this legislation only happens in places where there is already a widespread and increasing negative attitude toward tobacco use.
Yeah. Well, the columnist would argue, of course, that the restrictions on tobacco advertising are what's leading to this widespread and increasing negative attitude.
Hard argument to make if it's a fact that restrictions on tobacco advertising are imposed only in countries where this is already happening.
Yeah.
Right. So like, yeah, they might try to repeat their argument, but then the tobacco lawyers are going to just say C again and go like, wait, how's that possible? I just told you it's just a devastating weakener. Answer here is going to be C.
Yeah. This next one is from Anonymous. The subject is test violation.
Hi guys, avid listener here. I took my first LSAT in October using a mobile hotspot, which I know now is against the rules, and got a test violation on record.
It's an odd rule. I mean, I guess it must be for security reasons. But I'm surprised that if they can figure out that you are on a mobile hotspot, they aren't just preempting that and saying, hey, you're on a mobile hotspot. We can't proceed with this test, as opposed to waiting till the test is over and dinging you with a violation.
That is strange. Yeah. Why did it should have just been like a fail, like connection error, or they give you a message and says, yeah, sorry, no, you're not allowed to do this. Anonymous continues, I should have checked, but it didn't occur to me that it might be a problem. However, Prometric didn't have an issue with it and allowed me to complete my test. And it was only later when I logged into my JD account. JD account?
It must be LSAC account, right?
Yeah. Did I see that my score was canceled due to the violation? I called LSAC and they said there's nothing they can do and would suggest I write an addendum with my applications. I still plan to write a more formal appeal and make my case clearer. Good luck with that. I mean, I don't know what that appeal is going to look like. I violated your rules and you let me, so therefore my score should count. Or I guess maybe you could get the violation taken off your record,
And get it
but
canceled. Just get a cancel.
just get it turned into a cancel instead of a cancel with a violation on the record. Maybe you could get that violation removed, but I mean, it's like you can always appeal, right? Why not appeal? But
Mm-hmm.
how successful is that gonna be when it's part of their rules and you didn't read the rules and you violated the rules? I don't know how successful that one's gonna be.
Hmm.
Anyway, Anonymous says, I plan to write a more formal appeal and make my case clearer, but assuming that it can't be changed, what would you guys suggest regarding an addendum? What's your opinion on the gravity of the situation, and what's the best course of action going forward? Thanks a ton. That's from Anonymous. I don't think this is that big of a deal, Ben.
I agree. I mean, there's so many more serious bad choices you can make in your life. And you said, which I now know. So as an attorney, you're supposed to make sure you know all the rules, read all the fine print. But to be fair, LSAC does provide a lot of rules.
Yeah, that's true. It is a lengthy, lengthy list of rules. Yeah, that's true.
I would keep it short. I wouldn't wax on about it. I would just say, I didn't realize I couldn't use a
Right.
mobile hotspot. And so I got a violation on my record.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
did not do so the next time I took the LSAT. Just leave it at that.
yeah.
I mean, the person reading it might even be unaware of
Like,
this
wait, what?
rule and
We
sympathetic
have
to
a
you. Wait,
rule against
yeah,
that? Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. We like to poke fun, and it's true that there is a lengthy list of restrictions and boilerplate there,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't want to be, it doesn't help you to say, I didn't read the boilerplate,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Just keep it simple. I missed that rule. I overlooked it. I didn't realize.
I would just,
Whatever.
yeah, I was unaware. Just say I was unaware, right? I mean, I was unaware that I was not allowed to use a mobile hotspot. I know now. I regret this error, something like that. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't I wouldn't like downplay it. I wouldn't try to shift blame, or I would take responsibility for your error,
Yeah, the
right?
irony there is if you take responsibility, it's going to pull the reader onto your side.
Right.
As soon as you start making excuses or, as you said, point out the lengthy boilerplate,
No. Yeah. No.
they're gonna switch sides and start to poke holes in your reasoning. Yep.
Yeah, we can chuckle about it, but on your addendum you should write two sentences and you know, I I regret this error.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to
I
be
was
your tone.
unaware and I
I was
regret.
I was unaware. I regret this error. And everybody just moves forward from there. No big deal.
Yep.
Next one is from Melanie T.
Melanie writes, Good afternoon. I would greatly appreciate your assistance with a significant concern I have regarding my application process. I'm currently part of the Plus Scholar program by the Law School Admission Council, which supports aspiring legal professionals with personalized assistance for law school admissions. As part of this program, there are two major mandatory requirements. First, taking the July LSAT, and second, applying to at least 3 law schools by December 6th. Here's where my concern lies. When I took the LSAT in July, I felt unprepared, and my performance reflected that. I scored a 135. Now I must submit my application by December 6th with an addendum as required by the program, or I risk being removed from it. This puts me in a dilemma. If I don't apply, I might get kicked out of the program, and I'm unsure if law schools would be aware of that or if it would reflect poorly on me. On the other hand, submitting my application with an addendum feels daunting since I don't believe my score will lead to positive outcomes. Ultimately, my main goal is to get into law school with scholarship funding. Could you please advise me on what you recommend? Wait, did I miss something here? What's the addendum about?
Yeah, I think Melanie thinks that she's going to write an addendum like explaining her bad LSAT score,
Oh, yeah.
which is pointless. There's nothing Melanie, you're going to apply with a 135, you're going to get denied. I mean, or you're going to get admitted to some really sketchy law schools and you're not going to get any scholarships at all. So, it's just this isn't going to these applications are going to be denied or you're going to get terrible offers. So, if you want to stay in the program and if you have to jump through these hoops in order to stay in the program, I would just send in 3 applications, plan on getting denied by all 3 schools, and then you're just going back to the drawing board for your real applications, which are going to happen next fall. I mean, you're not ready, Melanie. You're a mile from ready this cycle. Like you need to not think about. You're so far away from even thinking about going to law school this cycle. Now that probably means that I don't really know what this Plus Scholar program entails, but it doesn't seem like it's doing anything for you. I mean, they forced you into an LSAT that was too soon for you. You scored horribly. No surprise there. I mean, there's no shame. There's no shame in that. It's just misguided. You weren't ready. You scored poorly. I don't see how that helps you. It doesn't help you. They're forcing you into 3 applications to law schools that are not going to turn out well. I mean, it's almost like worst case, Melanie, you're going to get admitted and they're going to try to charge you full price. And it's a very sketchy school that's admitting anybody with a 135. So, like that's just not what you want. You do not want to go to law school and pay full price with a 135. That's bad times. Okay? That's like no good outcomes. So, if and other than that, you're getting personalized assistance for law school admissions. Well, okay, so far that's strike 1 and strike 2 as far as that doesn't sound like personalized assistance, by the way. That sounds like boilerplate cookie cutter assistance, and it's not serving you. So I would maybe just walk away from this program because I don't know what good things are coming from it.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like discounts on how many, on LSAT attempts or discounts on application fees.
Kaplan or something. Or, well, okay, there you go. Yeah, that would be great. I was making a joke about, discounts on terrible LSAT prep, but if they're giving you discounts on application or free applications or probably free attempts at the LSAT, but like you got a free attempt at the LSAT so that you could get a 0 of a score, right? I mean, 135 and not taking it at all, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So you're just not getting in with that score, or you're not getting into any credible school.
It's better because then you'd still
Right.
have one more attempt
Better.
to take the LSAT.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering what was motivating these requirements. Somehow they don't want people to drop out of the program. They want people to
Right.
stick with it or something.
Well,
But
they want to
unfortunately,
be
it
able
has some
to
really negative effects.
they want to be able to report their diversity outreach numbers. They don't want their program to be ineffectual. Probably in the past they had a program where, oh, it turns out that these people don't even take the LSAT, or it turns out that these people don't even apply, and we don't want to waste all these resources if people aren't going to take the LSAT, aren't going to apply to law school. So let's make it a requirement of the program that they take the LSAT and apply to law school. I'm speculating, but it seems like that's where this kind
Yes,
of thing would come
that's
from.
where it bubbled up from. Sure.
Right. It's just like, well, we got to make sure that we require people to take these steps or else they're not going to take these steps. And this is a pipeline initiative. We have funding to, for whatever to try to get underrepresented people into law school. So that's why we're doing this. But I mean, all this is going to do is it's going to either result in denials, which are good for the schools, but bad for you. Well, they're not really that bad for you, but they're good for the schools because the schools get to like boost up, oh, look how exclusive we are.
Yeah.
Right. So it's good for them and does nothing for you. Or it's going to result in something that's good for them and terrible for you, which is they let you in and they just soak the student loan system for zillions of dollars and you end up with a lifetime burden of debt. And that's not good for you, Melanie.
At a school that you're less likely to succeed at because you're coming in with numbers that don't merit a scholarship.
I mean, 135, Ben.
Yeah.
135 indicates almost no understanding of the test. You're like solving almost none of the questions at a 135. It's just not that, like random guessing is 127 or something.
Yeah. I wanted to look
So
that up. I'm curious what it is, but yeah.
I mean, you're adding very little value at a 135. You can outscore 135 if you only do the first like 7 questions per section. I mean, that's guaranteed. If you just get the first like 5 right, I think you're already over a 1. Get the first 5 right and then randomly guess. That's probably a 135.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, Melanie, you don't understand the test. It's a shame that you got forced into taking it before you were ready. Forcing in these applications before you're ready is just kind of a joke. It's like ticking boxes for their outreach numbers or their pipeline promotion numbers or whatever. But this isn't real. This is like not providing any real benefit for the world.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a shame. I mean, this can't be the outcome that they intended when they created these rules.
Yeah. So the bottom line for Melanie is either leave the program or stay and apply to 3 schools and be prepared to say no to all of them, no matter what they come back with. But the only reason you would want to stay in this program is if there's something beyond personalized assistance, because it doesn't seem like the advice you're getting so far is in your best interest.
Yeah, I mean, it might be that they're like connecting Melanie to lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
certain outreach events, networking events, helping Melanie with her personal statement, helping her with whatever other things. Free LSAT, free credential assembly service, free reports from the credential assembly service. I mean, I imagine that Melanie's getting this package of benefits, but if it's all wasted on applying when you're not ready, then it just doesn't really seem, Melanie, like you're getting much out of it. I suppose maybe that networking stuff might still have some value, but Melanie, you have no business applying to law school this cycle. I mean, you should be prepping hard for the LSAT now, taking it when you're ready, but you're not going to be ready until sometime in 2025. And then, maybe you're going to be ready to apply by September of 2025 for starting law school in September of 2026. Maybe, but you got a long way to go on the LSAT before you're even close to that. So it could just be, Melanie, that this program is not a good fit for you. Thanks for writing in. And if you decide to apply, I wouldn't bother with an addendum. I mean, what's the point of an addendum here? I got a shitty LSAT. I wasn't ready to take the test. That doesn't help you.
No. Nothing can really redeem a 135,
No.
unfortunately.
And not to say that 135 is an anchor on you forever, because when you retake it and you get a 160 something, then now you're a 160 something in the eyes of the school, and they're going to schools, and they're just going to write off that 135 and say, oh, well, she clearly wasn't ready or whatever. But just applying with a 135 as your best LSAT, it's just a 0. I mean, that's a non-starter. You're not going anywhere with that.
Yeah. This next one's from Victoria. The subject is practice score versus actual score disparity.
Hi, Ben and Nathan. I started studying for the LSAT last fall and took it this past April. My diagnostic score was a 157. Damn. And after months of studying with LSAT Demon, I was consistently scoring between 167 and 170 on practice tests. Only 10 to 13 points improvement, Ben. You think Victoria could have done better?
Yeah, for sure. I think someone with a cold diagnostic of 157, unless we're missing something here, we'd expect you to really push yourself and to try as best you can to push yourself into the 170s.
I just don't see why you can't. If your cold diagnostic is 157, you should end up in the mid 170s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just no reason not to.
Yeah.
Victoria continues, going into the April LSAT, I felt confident I'd land at least in the low 160s, accounting for a small drop. Why? You don't have to drop. There's like this myth that scores always go down on the official test. It's just not true. However, I ended up with a 157 again, which felt devastating after all those hours of study and improvement. I was shocked that I scored the same score I got on my diagnostic, considering I never scored remotely that low again on a practice test. I took the summer off and I'm back to studying now for the January test, but I still feel discouraged. Any advice on closing the gap between my practice and real scores? Was this just first time anxiety or has the real test gotten harder? No. Thanks so much, Victoria. What do you think for Victoria?
Yeah. So just to be clear, the real test has not gotten harder. It's the same. The practice tests you're taking in the Demon are official practice tests that were released recently. Some of them, nothing has changed there. What's happening is what's happening to a lot of people who see these huge drops, and that is you're going into the test on test day and treating it differently in some way, shape, or form. Most
Well,
people slow down or go fast.
and her email, it even, it's like you could tell that she's treating the official test differently from how she's treating all her practice tests because she's like, what was she expecting? She gives us a little insight here into what she was thinking. I felt confident I'd land at least in the low 160s, accounting for a small drop. It's like, Victoria, you you were like planning on the official test being something different from all your practice tests.
Planning on it being harder.
Right. Expecting it to be harder. So then what did you do, Victoria? You either, as Ben said, there's some people slow way down. Oh, this is going to be harder. I need to take it more seriously. I need to triple check all the wrong answers.
Yeah.
And then you end up underperforming because you're just not doing it the way you did it on your successful practice tests. Or the other flip side of that is it's the official test. I need to get super hyped up for this thing. I'm going to race through it and make sure I try to finish finish every question because
I
this is
didn't
the
finish
real
my
deal.
practice test last Saturday, but I'm going to finish today.
Right. And you race to the finish and you just like fall into every trap and you just make all kinds of silly mistakes, misreadings. You're just not really doing it. And you end up back where you started. So it's not surprising, but we say it over and over. If you get different results on the official test than you did on all your practice tests, it's because you did something different on your official test than you did on all those practice tests. It's not because the official test is actually any different. It's because your performance on the test was something different.
And just to hammer that home a little bit more, you're saying they did something different. And why did you do
Yes.
something different? Because you thought differently about the
Yes.
test beforehand,
Right.
right? So you can change that now and just recognize that every test you're taking was an official test that everyone else took officially. You've done it
Right.
before. You
Right.
can do it again.
Right. So take your practice tests seriously, but not too seriously. Take your official test seriously, but not too seriously. You should have backups scheduled. You should not be going in thinking that you're only going to take the LSAT once. You're going to take the LSAT as many times as necessary to replicate the better half of your practice tests, right? You want something at or above the median of your practice tests, ideally. So, Victoria, your plan should have been I've been scoring 167 to 170 on my PTs. So I'm going to go take the test. I'm not expecting a small drop. I'm expecting something within that range. I'm hoping for something 168, 169 or higher. If I don't get it, then I'm going to take the very next LSAT and the next LSAT after that and the next LSAT after that and the next LSAT after that if necessary. Instead, Victoria is writing us now about an April LSAT.
Mm-hmm.
It's like pretty clear that Victoria was planning on only taking the test once, and then she got the result back, and then she's super discouraged. So then she quits, and she's just not playing the long game. And she's definitely treating the official test as something, just the fact that she stopped studying.
Yeah, well, it gives it so much weight. It's like, oh, well, that's my real score. No, it's not. It's
Right.
just another practice test. I mean, this was your idea a
Right.
long time ago. You said give the official test the name of the next practice test that's going to be released.
Yeah.
Right now, we're on
I,
test 158. Everyone who's going to take a test next, they're going to be taking test 159.
right.
Just
It's just another practice test.
remember that. Yeah. Call it what it
Right.
is.
Right. Because it literally is. They don't, for years, they released 3 out of 4 of the official tests every year. They just released them as practice tests. Now they don't do it on quite that schedule anymore, but they do from time to time release new tests. And so, yeah, this next test coming up, what number did you say it was? 159?
159. Yep.
Yeah, you should treat the upcoming January LSAT, you should treat it as practice test 159. And then it's just another data point in your range. And if you're taking the January test, you should also be planning on taking whatever the next test is after that, because you need a backup. And you probably need a backup to your backup. And you got to just play the long game so that you can treat these official tests as if they're just another practice test, so that you can get a score that's just right in line with all your other practice tests. You can do better, Victoria, than 167 to 170. And this could be the best thing that ever happened to you. Underperformance on that April test sends you back to the books, and you prep better, smarter, harder, longer this time. And you end up with a range that's more like 174 to 177 heading into this next test. And you end up with a 175. I mean, imagine, it sounds likely if Victoria would have scored 165, she would have been like, oh, that's only a couple points lower than my practice test range. Great. And then she applies to law school with a 165.
Yeah,
That would
she
be
probably would have, because
terrible.
she said, I mean, it could be worse than that. She said, I felt confident I'd land at least in the low 160s. So she
Right.
might have been happy with a
162. And she's like,
162.
great.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm done.
And we've seen this happen over and over, where it is literally the best thing in LSAT terms. It's the best thing that ever could have happened to you that you underperformed on your first official. Because if you would have done okay on your first official test, you would have said, okay, cool, that's great, I'm done. And as good as that sounds, you end up applying to law school with a 162 and you get whatever outcomes you get from that. But Victoria, you're somebody who should be solidly in the mid 170s. I really believe that. There's no reason why you can't get a 15-point improvement. When you start at 157, you should be looking at 172 or higher.
Yeah,
And
to be clear, that doesn't mean today, right? So we're not
no,
stressing Victoria out with like, oh, I should be there. No, not today, but you can get there.
yeah, you're just not ready.
Yeah.
And you're not ready if you don't. I mean, I want people to have higher goals for themselves. I want you to go to some great law school, Victoria, and I want you to go ideally for free. And the best way that you can just knock open the doors to those schools and to those scholarships is to get you the 170 something that I know you're capable of. So, 167 to 170, Ben, that indicates like a 80% understanding of the test.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to demonstrate a 90 or 95% understanding of the test with a 175 practice test score.
Yeah.
If you can get that practice test range up to where it's more like 173 to 177, which I'm sure you can, Victoria. Other people who look exactly like you do that every day, right? I mean, we see 157 diagnostic. People end up scoring 180 from a 157 diagnostic. So, no reason why you can't be in the mid to high 170s on your PTs. And then if you are, then you should take the official test as many times as necessary to replicate uh, an official score in the mid to high 170s. And when that happens, Victoria, like it's going to be work and it's going to take time. But when that happens, you're going to be very glad that you got a 157, not a 162 on your first official test.
Yeah.
That 157 just disappears from your record. I mean, it's still technically on your record, but the schools don't care. The second you get a 175, the schools are like, okay, here we go. That's the number we get to report to the American Bar Association. That's the number US News is going to use when they rank our law school. That 157 just doesn't, it's just as if it never happened.
All right. Well, yeah, keep us posted. The next one's from Jess. The subject is practice test frequency.
Hi, Thinking LSAT team. I'm enjoying the LSAT Demon program I started this past month, and I am making very slow yet upward progress, which I'm happy with. Prior to starting the Demon, I had taken a diagnostic after a few days of familiarization, scoring a 155, and a follow up about a month later, also a 155, but with increased accuracy. That's good. I like that, right? Like get the same score, but attempting fewer questions. That's a win because then your understanding of the questions you have done is higher. That's great. Now that I'm mainly working through the demon's timed sections and drills, should I wait to take more full practice tests until my section averages make discernible improvements? Thanks. That's from Jess.
Yeah, Jess, it sounds like you're treating practice tests as something different from your time sections. Practice tests are just 3 or 4 time sections taken at once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you want to take a practice test to see what it's like to do sections back to back, feel free to do so. But you don't need to do so more than once a month. And it doesn't really have anything to do with how you're doing on your sections because practice tests are just sections.
Yeah, people just like they put full practice tests in this weird box. I don't know if they're like they don't really want to do it, so they're looking for excuses not to do it. It's that like procrastination thing where it feels like it's going to be such a big deal, so you want to put it off. Well, it's not really that important, Jess. It doesn't really matter, but on the official test, you're going to have to do 4 sections in a row. If that's scary to you, then you need to do it sometimes in your practice so that you realize that it's 1/4 of a workday for a lawyer, as I like to say. Maybe not quite 1/4 of a workday for the lawyers that I know.
Mm,
Depends what kind of a lawyer you are, but I know many lawyers that work like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every single day,
mm-hmm.
Monday through Friday. Those are the ones that so some of those get to take weekends. If they work 7 to 7 Monday through Friday, and by the way, Friday counts. It's not like it's different on Friday. They're working all the way, 7 to 7 because they want to take a weekend. So a 12-hour workday, compare that to 4 times 35 minutes to take a full LSAT, including the experimental section. That's 2 hours and 20 minutes. 2.5 hours if you give yourself a 10-minute break.
Mm.
It's just not that big of a deal. But people make it into a much bigger deal than it actually is. So if it feels like a big deal to you, then yeah, you need to do it sometimes.
Yeah, to make it not as big of a deal. Exactly.
Yeah,
You have to
exposure
face
therapy, right?
what you're afraid of. Yep.
Yeah, and you'll realize that it's not that big of a deal. But again, it's also not such a big deal that you need to do it very often. Like Ben said, if you did one of these a month, that's fine. The bulk of your prep should be drilling, timed sections, and most importantly, thorough review of every single question you miss.
Yeah. The only thing I was gonna say is just if it's true that you're making the practice test special in any way. My bigger concern is that you're going to make the official test even more special. So
Right.
just remember, every test is made up of sections. Every section is just made up of individual questions. That's all you have to do at any given moment is you just have to answer the next question. That's it.
And the questions are made up of sentences, and the sentences are made up of words, right? I mean, it's always just a reading comprehension test.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
focus on the shit that's right in front of you. Make sure that you're understanding as you go. One sentence at a time, one word at a time. If you understand it, keep going. If you don't understand it, reread it. and, and it's just not that big of a deal. The questions do solve themselves if you understand what they're actually saying. You just got to probably read it more carefully. Ben, our man Eric, awesome LSAT teacher, tutor, Eric, producer of this podcast, Eric, is unfortunately for us applying to law school this cycle.
Okay.
And so that means that he's getting all kinds of offers. So here's an offer. I want you to evaluate it. This is an offer from Liberty University School of Law. And Eric says, how could I say no to this offer? So he got this offer unsolicited in his email. And then he went down the rabbit hole on researching Liberty University School of Law. But here's the offer.
Yeah. So this is their email and it's in big font. It says, secure your seat, apply today. Okay. So Eric didn't apply to this school. They're just trying to get Eric to come to them
Yep.
anyway. Dear Eric, Liberty Law offers an early decision application for students who wish to secure their spot in the class of 2028. Okay. The deadline to apply for the early decision program is December 15th, 2024. Sounds kind of late to me. And there's even later early decision deadlines, by the way. Advantages applying early. Early decision applicants who confirm after February 1st, 2025, but before March 1st, 2025, will receive a $500 Barnes & Noble gift card.
I think that must be people who actually accept their offer, because it says the deadline for early decision is December 15th. So then this must be, if you're stupid enough to accept our offer before March 1st, then we'll give you a $500 Barnes & Noble gift card.
Oh, wow.
Paid for by you out of your tuition.
That's crazy. Because, I'm pretty sure negotiation experts would say this is the kind of thing that works. You're you're talking about an item that's going to cost you over $100,000, and your mind still foolishly gets tricked into thinking, oh, but if I make this decision now, I can get $500 at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, which they bought at a discount, obviously, right? Because most of them won't get renewed. Also, this is an advertisement for Barnes and Noble. Yeah, it's just so stupid. It's like, oh, great. Sign me up for $50,000 a year tuition, presumably, so that I can get 1% of the first year tuition back in the form of a Barnes and Noble gift card. Awesome.
Okay, then there's a big button that says apply now. The last paragraph says...
The last paragraph made me laugh. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, by the way, too, this advantages of applying early. Maybe I'm missing something here, but there's only they do it in bullet point form. But there's only one bullet point listed.
One bullet point, yeah.
Okay. Applicants who are admitted under the early decision application. The reason I hesitate is because they capitalized early decision earlier in the email, but not here.
It's a sloppy email. Yeah.
Yeah. Under the early decision application will be notified of their decision and scholarship no later than January 15th. Okay. So 1 month later. To accept this offer, you must pay a $400 non-refundable deposit. Okay, that's how much they paid for the Barnes and Noble gift
exactly.
card.
So yeah, that's the part that really makes me laugh. Yeah, if you accept our offer, which by the way, that's like binding now. You're gonna probably. Well, we haven't gotten there yet, but I assume that this is a binding early decision program where if you even apply, for the valuable consideration of they're going to promise to give you their decision no later than January 15th of 2025, you are promising to them that you will withdraw all other offers from all other law schools, right? So you're
Is
putting
that
yourself.
what it said here? Because this is to accept this offer. That sounds like you still have the choice.
Well, no, because you don't have to go to law school.
Hmm.
Right. You're not signing on the dotted line for actually attending the school for the first year.
You're just agreeing. In theory, you're agreeing to not apply anywhere else if you do their early decision.
You're agreeing that if they admit you, you will withdraw all other applications. If it's a binding program. And most early decision programs are binding, so I haven't seen the fine print on this yet, but I'm going to assume without any you should assume, right? Before you do anything stupid like this, you should assume that this is binding.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it is hilarious. All you got to do to get your $500 Barnes and Noble gift card is pay us $400 as a non-refundable deposit. And yes,
Okay.
that's going to fully cover the cost of that $500 Barnes and Noble gift card. Guaranteed.
This email continues. If you receive a decision that places you on the wait list, you will automatically be considered under the traditional application. Oh, thank you.
That's nice.
Okay, so Eric has provided us a bunch of links here. We have a link to the 509 report, which, by the way, you can find by going to lsatdemon.com/scholarships. On the scholarship estimator, you can search for Liberty University, and you'll see a link to the 509 right there. Let's go through this. What do we know about their medians? Let's start there.
Yeah, this is part of our ongoing feature on this show. What's the deal with this law school? So that's what we're doing here. What's the deal with Liberty University School of Law? I don't know much about it. It's in Lynchburg, Virginia, Ben. How far is that from you?
That's actually I know quite well because my son has gymnastics meets there at that
Oh,
university. It's
at
about an
Liberty
hour and 40.
University.
Yeah, it's about an hour and 45 minutes south of us.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking at the 509. The top right corner of the 509 says that they got 459 applications last year and they admitted over half of those. That's already a bad start. Most law schools are more selective than that. So this school is not getting a lot of applications and they have to admit a lot of those. They admit 56% of the people that apply. Of those 259, only 105 actually enroll. So, they accept 56% of the people who apply, and then 60% of those turn around and say, yeah, never mind. Only 40% of the people that Liberty makes offers to actually say yes.
So more
So
people reject them than they reject.
more people that, yes, they reject, exactly. They reject 44%.
Yep.
And then of the ones who applied and were accepted, 60% reject them back. Like they look at the offer and they're like, yeah, no thanks. I got better offers. So already, not looking very good for Liberty University School of Law. What do the LSAT and GPA medians tell us about this school?
Yeah, so the 50th percentile, the median is 154 for LSAT, and for GPA it's 3.56. 154 is just not
good.
a competitive LSAT score.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's a score that is not getting into any top 25 law school, like just never, like zero chance of admission at any of the, like what anyone would consider top tier law schools.
Yeah.
Their 25th percentiles are even worse. 25th percentile 151, LSAT 25th percentile 3.13 GPA. So like these are people who have demonstrated that they were bad students in college or very mediocre students in college. And then quite mediocre performance on the LSAT. That's the people that you're going to be rubbing shoulders with at Liberty University. Scrolling down to the bottom of the second page, this is maybe the most important part of the 509 report and really should be, if I was at the American Bar Association, if anybody at the American Bar Association is listening, move this tuition and fees, move that up. And then even more important than that, top of the third page, grants and scholarships table, move that up to the first page of the 509 report so that we can see the damn price that people are paying to go to these schools. You know, they nominally have a tuition here of $40,000. Well, geez, by the time you add in their fees, $43,000, let's call it. Okay, $43,000 a year times 3. Now we have to go down to the grants and scholarships table on the top of the third page to figure out what the actual price is. And you know, that's another thing that they could do here, Ben. If I'm at the 509, right? Or sorry, if I'm at the ABA, like if I'm in the section for legal education at the American Bar Association and I'm in charge of these 509 reports, I'm saying let's put a metric on here for actual price paid. Like, why don't they just have average price paid?
Mm-hmm.
You could have one number, average price paid, so that you know what the school is actually worth in the eyes of the students. Instead, they let the schools play this stupid game where it's like, well, here's our tuition and everybody pays that tuition. But then, yeah, you know, we have these grants and scholarships, and it is true that 99% of the people who attend our school get some kind of a grant. 35% of the people get something less than half tuition discount. But then 51% get somewhere between half to full tuition, and 13% get full tuition. So you're looking at 1% who pay full tuition. You're looking at only 49% who pay even half of that fake tuition. And it's just a scam, right? You got some people who are paying the full $44,000, $43,000 a year, but most people are going to actually pay $19,000 a year or even zero, because that's what this school is basically worth.
Yeah.
I
mean, so, you know, we're focused on the 509 here, but really we should be taking people to the tuition roll call, right? Because the
Sure.
tuition roll call has all this information, and more than just the average tuition that the school pays, it has the likely tuition that you would pay given your LSAT and GPA.
Okay, cool.
So
How do they find that?
yeah, you go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships. At the bottom of the page, you search for Liberty. As soon as you start typing that in, you'll see it. It pops up. It's ranked 140. You then click on that school name and it will take you to the tuition roll call, and you'll see a mock-up of a classroom. This was Nathan's idea. You see 100 students sitting in front of a professor, and you have some students who are green, some students who are yellow, some students who are orange. And then on this case, there's only one student who's red, but that's because 1% of the class is not getting a discount. 1% of the class is paying full tuition.
Yeah, 3 people at the whole school, 332 students at the school. There's 3 of those people who are paying full tuition.
That's sad.
That's the red. I like how they're in the back of the classroom too. That's funny.
Yeah, that was your idea as well. But what you can do is you can also, you'll see options to enter your GPA and LSAT score. You may not have your LSAT score yet, but you could put in different LSAT scores and see where you would land in this class. I don't know what Eric's numbers are, but they would definitely put him in the green. And so he would be getting a full tuition, most likely be getting a full tuition scholarship offer.
Yeah, I mean, this is a school where even with very mid numbers, like I put in 3.55 GPA, which is not good in law school terms, and a 155 LSAT, which is also not good in law school terms. And it's still saying that you're going to get more than a 50% scholarship at this school. You're going to be in the second or third row out of 5. And you're going to be paying somewhere between $2,300 a year and $22,600 a year. Anyway, you're going to be paying less than half of their fake $43,000 a year tuition. Cool. What else can we say about Liberty University School of Law?
Yeah, let's see here. So Eric has included a link to job outcomes. He also got this from the ABA. Okay. So this is a one-page document. At the type, it has a list of different employment statuses. So you can get all sorts of jobs, of course, when you leave law school. This is one of the lesser known secrets, I guess, is just because you are employed doesn't mean you got a job that even required you going to law school. Here, what's the number? We have total graduates is 91, and the number of graduates who got full-time, long-term, bar required work is 68. So 68 out of 91.
Yeah. I mean, the next table down tells a little bit more of the story though. So none of those people are going into big firms. So none of those people are making big money.
Yeah.
The biggest firms that anybody's getting into are firms 101 to 250 lawyers, which is, like mid-sized firm, and you're going to make mid money. But the biggest cohort here is people going into firms of 1 to 10 lawyers. So 21 of those 68 people are going into very small firms, which are going to give you very small pay. Another 19 people went into government jobs. Have no idea what those government jobs look like. And then 11 people went into clerkships. So there's one federal clerkship, and that one might actually turn into like big money job somewhere.
Yeah.
Because presumably, if you can get a federal clerkship, you can probably get like big law offers. But 11 people are working in a state, local, or territorial clerkship, which those jobs just tend to be not very prestigious, not very hard to get, not very high paid, and they don't tend to lead to the kinds of high paying career outcomes. That's going to be a temporary position for a year or two. And then after that, well, good luck. Just all clerkships are not created equal, is what I'm trying to say there. So yeah, these job outcomes, these job outcomes don't look great. Like they say that the people are working, but they're they're not working for the kind of money that you expect to make when you make that kind of an investment of time and tuition money.
Yeah. I agree with you that looking at the law firm size and the types of clerkships that these folks are getting is interesting because these law firms are very small. But I'm still shocked that 23 people are not getting bar required jobs, right? So that's 25% of the class. And they're probably the 25% of the class that is paying close to full. So you're
That's
making the
the
biggest investment and you have just paid for 3 years of law school that to get a job that didn't require you to go to law school.
that's the tragedy of this whole thing. I mean, that's why we do what we do, right? Like that's the if there's a driving purpose behind this podcast for the last 10 years, it's to try to show people the tragedy of this game where if you're going to charge everybody a different price to go to law school, that's one thing. But then the fact that you're charging the people the most who are going to also preferentially get the worst outcomes, no job at all, or a job that's not even JD required, it, those people are the ones who are the most likely to pay something closer to that $40,000 a year actual tuition. Those are the people that are going to have the most debt and the worst job outcomes. They also tend to be poorer, first generation people of color. And that's the real, just like no one would ever have designed this system. This system evolved, right? This is, I'm sure, well meaning people. They don't mean to be ripping off poorer, browner people via their law schools, but that is, in fact, what happens.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
Eric. So I hope you're deciding not to go here. Anything else you want to talk about this school?
Background information, it was founded in 2004 as a division of Liberty University, which is an evangelical school. A bit of background here. Jerry Falwell Jr., son of the famous televangelist Jerry Falwell, was previously the president of Liberty University. His father was the founder of Liberty University. Jr. resigned in 2020 amid a sex scandal. He subsequently sued Liberty for defamation. Liberty countersued, and the two sides settled earlier this year. Eric will probably link to that news story in the show notes as well. Their interim dean, Timothy Todd, has a 1.7 out of 5 on ratemyprofessors.com. Student reviews call him unkind, condescending, and lacking in emotional maturity. That's the interim dean, according to ratemyprofessors.com. Here's a fun fact. Liberty Law's campus features a, quote, Supreme Courtroom. The 330-seat courtroom contains the only known replica of the U.S. Supreme Court bench, accurate down to the angles and measurements.
Wow. Okay.
I thought you were going to say, why? Which is also a valid.
Well,
I was like, what's the value of that? How many of these people are ever going to argue in front of the Supreme Court?
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, my mind was.
But you can take tours at the Capitol, which I've done.
They're just playing to their aspirations, right? They're like, okay,
Exactly.
imagine one day you're going to be ready because you practiced in law school for how to argue before the Supreme Court. Good luck.
You can come here and cosplay as someone who is going to actually actually make arguments at the highest level, which is going to be exceedingly rare for any lawyer, let alone a lawyer who goes to a law school as poorly ranked and poorly respected as this law school. Anyway, that's the deal with Liberty University, Liberty Law.
Okay, so we have tips from a departing demon. This is from Reese. Wow, Reese did quite well. Reese was with us for 8 months, I guess. Started with us in the 160s, low one or 160 actually, and spent at least 155 hours on questions. Probably a lot more time than that because it doesn't have the review time listed here. But yeah, what is Reese telling us?
Reese got a 12-point improvement, by the way, from 160 on his first attempt, his or her first attempt, 172 best practice test. Reese says, got a 170. I assume that's official. The biggest tips are to feign interest and read carefully. There's no need to highlight. Just ensure you're understanding what you're reading and you'll be fine. No need for much else other than repetition. That's from Reese. Thanks, Reese. You want to talk a little bit about what that means, that feign interest?
Yeah, feign interest is a lot of times when people, especially in reading comprehension, are looking at a passage that they have no interest in. 18th century sculpture.
Yeah.
Who knows what? They can sometimes let that become a block for just trying to understand it.
Yeah. Even in smaller, like in logical reasoning.
Yeah.
I want to be a criminal lawyer. I don't give a shit about tobacco advertising.
Or spiders. Yeah.
Or whatever it is. But you've got to treat it like it's a little law challenge. This is a legal matter. This has arrived in your law office and you're meant to understand everything that's there. So we often talk about how you can fake it till you make it. On the reading comprehension, it can be talking about some topic that you just are really not that interested in, or on logical reasoning, it could be talking about some topic that you don't give a shit. You don't know anything about it. You don't give a shit about it, but you're going to pretend like you're interested. And hopefully then you'll like catch actual interest as you go. You've got to find a way to get interested in it. Actually understand what evidence they're presenting, understand what conclusion they're trying to make from that evidence, and then play the game of, okay, so do I buy it? does that conclusion really follow from those facts? Make sure you're understanding the evidence and the conclusion in logical reasoning. On reading comprehension passage, what do you want? Why are you wasting my time with this? Well, you're here to tell me about 18th century poetry in Scotland? What? I don't care, but all right, what is it that you think is so interesting? Why are you telling me this stuff? And as you fake interest in it, you then develop actual interest in it. Then you understand what's in the passage, and then it's fun because you get the questions right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I did
thanks,
have one
Reese.
student who said once we said, or maybe it was on the podcast. I can't remember if this was in class or maybe on the podcast, but they said once they started focusing on just owning the passage and comprehending it to the point where they could tell anyone else about it, they didn't need to worry about feigning interest anymore. That was enough. Like, hey, my job is to own this shit and to fully be the boss of what has been written. And that was enough.
Yeah, what's in the record? I mean, you either do understand the record or you don't understand the record. You're just not winning legal arguments if you don't understand the record.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of obvious. Seems like it should be obvious, but it's one of the most common things we end up saying as LSAT teachers. Like, I don't think you really read it. I don't think you really understood what was there. If you understood what was there, you're not going to be picking that answer because that answer does not answer the question based on that record.
Yeah.
Time for word of the week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is from Matt. This is from test 158, apparently passage 3. The sentence, it looks like it is one sentence, says Christopher Ricks is suspicious of historical approaches to ethical issues. To him, okay, emphasis on change across generations produces an extenuating moral relativism that shields the evil of plagiarism from its due obloquy.
Obloquy. Yeah.
Obloquy. Okay.
If you had asked me that word out of context, I never would get it. I do think I can get it from context, though. I mean, you're shielding an evil thing from something that it is due, right? I'm really just looking at this last line.
Yeah.
Like Christopher Ricks is worried about this. He's worried about XYZ. Why is he worried about XYZ? Well, because it shields an evil from its due obloquy, right? It's due something. Well, what is evil due? Evil is due punishment. Evil is due chastisement, criticism, whatever. I think obloquy is going to mean criticism.
Okay.
Merriam-Webster says a strongly condemnatory utterance or abusive language. That's the first definition. Second definition is the condition of one that is discredited or bad repute. So yeah, criticism is pretty damn close. I think that criticism could easily be a synonym for obloquy in that context. I mean, would criticism have fit there? Moral relativism shields the evil of plagiarism from its due criticism.
Yeah. You're
Seems like it
not
makes sense, right?
criticizing plagiarism because of this moral relativism,
Right.
moral relativism that you're imposing.
Would it make
Yeah.
sense there if you put praise into that spot?
Shields the evil of plagiarism from its due praise. It protects it from praise.
An evil thing? Protecting an evil thing from the praise that it is due? That would not make any sense.
Yeah.
Nice word of the week. Obloquy. Again, yeah, meaning strong condemnation.
Be LSAT famous. Please ask questions or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on our socials at LSAT Demon. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, you can email help@lsatdemon.com. Also, check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 481 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.